Hello students, and welcome to day 2 of Western Civilization. Today's topic, we're going to look at the fall of Rome. So some notable locations that you'll need to kind of have in the back of your mind today is Rome, obviously, and we'll go through maps today and we'll outline exactly where Rome is, and Constantinople, which will become the new capital of Rome and then the capital of the subsequent Byzantine Empire. Two people that we'll talk about today and kind of the administrative changes that they make with the Roman Empire are going to be Diocletian and Constantine. Alright, so let's get into it. So if we take a look here, this is a map of the Roman world really at its height. And you can see by looking at this that the Roman world is going to stretch all the way around the Mediterranean Sea. Now Rome has its origins after kind of classical Greece falls out of the picture. And so a tiny little village will eventually become a principality, and then eventually it's going to explode into this huge empire. Now when we talk about the fall of the Roman Empire, there really isn't a single event that causes the decline or the fall. It's a combination of a bunch of things. And we'll go over just kind of a general introduction today in this video. And the DBQ that you'll do will get a little more specific into what exact causes kind of laid the seeds of demise within the Roman Empire. Now what we get here essentially is that Roman authority was slowly decaying, and this is true for every great empire or civilization. When they reach the pinnacle, they slowly start to kind of have some internal issues that eventually will lead to their demise. And what this does, when people start to question their authority, it makes the empire or the country or whatever territory we're talking about susceptible for military threats, internal and external. And so essentially what does replace the Roman Empire are going to be a lot of Germanic tribes that will eventually invade the empire's territory. And we're looking at about 476 CE is when the last Roman Empire in the western portion of the Roman Empire is deposed. Now, one of the things that Rome had against it, and going for it at the same time, was its sheer size. The Roman Empire was huge. It was one of the largest empires that existed in world history. And as this empire became so large, it became increasingly unmanageable. And so there's a lot of administrative problems that arise because of that. Now, one of the Roman empires that was kind of progressive in his thought to remedy this issue was Emperor Diocletian. And what he did is he divided the empire into two halves. And each half had an emperor and almost like a sub-ruler, if you will, underneath them. So essentially we had four different people that were vested in ruling the Roman Empire. So essentially from Diocletian's implementation of this policy, we get the Roman Empire that's divided into an eastern portion, which will become the Byzantine Empire, and the western portion, which is what you and I kind of refer to as the classical Roman Empire. Now this map illustrates the four different locations here within Diocletian's policy. So we can see here we have one region, another, and then the eastern portion is also kind of split in half with Caesar and then Diocletian himself. Now anytime you split up power, especially power of this magnitude, ruling one of the largest empires and the largest empire at this time, there's going to be some rivalry, and that's exactly what happened amongst some of these rulers and their families and such. And so that introduces a new character into the scene, and that is Constantine. And Constantine vies for power, and in 324 CE he overcomes his rivals. And what he does is he kind of relocates the capital of the Roman Empire from Rome itself to a brand new city named after himself, you guessed it, Constantinople. Now, Constantine was a very able ruler. He does a lot of very good things in terms of policy and religious tolerance and so on and so forth. We'll get into that later in this class. But after him and some other able-bodied rulers, the same problem persists. And what we have here is that these emperors really struggled with the resources that were needed to govern and protect the Roman Empire. And so the Roman Empire was subject to a lot more intense threats from outside invaders, from Germanic tribes and such. So if you take a look at this map, this kind of characterizes some of the paths that these Germanic tribes and peoples took. So we can see here at the top the Angles and Saxons that take over and move into Britain. All right, and we see the Vandals, the Franks, the Lombards, Visigoths, and so on and so forth. Now, a lot of these Germanic tribes are going to lay, we'll get into in just a minute, are going to lay the seeds of administrative centers that will become essentially modern Europe. So as I referenced before, 476 CE is the end of the western portion of the Roman Empire. However, the Roman Empire itself didn't disintegrate entirely. And the eastern portion, the Byzantine Empire, lasted for about another millennia, all right, until really about 1453, it's replaced by some Ottoman Turks, and that's going to stay in power until the 20th century. So in the wake of the fall of Rome, what we see is a lot of nomadic tribes that build successor states. So the Vandals and the Visigoths are going to set up what will become Italy and Spain. The Franks inhabit the region of Gaul, which will become France, and the Angles and Saxons inhabit Britain. So essentially, if you have European origin, you should thank these outside invaders for taking down Rome. Again, you can look at this map and it shows you just the paths that they took. I would urge you to pause this video at this time, check out some of these Germanic tribes and just kind of where they ended up. So the last slide of the day, what we see is once they get into their relative locations, they set up empires and kingdoms and principalities and so on and so forth. And eventually, over history and over the duration of this class, we'll examine how these become legitimate institutions and authorities in terms of the political spectrum of Western civilization. And that'll set us up for tomorrow, where we'll take off and we'll talk about the Byzantine Empire. Thanks for tuning in.